today I want to talk about emotions. So, emotions can be really hard to define. There's a couple ways that we can go about it. One of them is to just list all the emotions that we can think of, and we can think about how are they related or the same. And so if you do that, you'll say things like disgust or fear or joy or anxiety. And what you'll see is that all of these kind of are like a transient psychological state. But I don't think that that definition really is strong enough, because it doesn't really exclude other things that the brain does as temporary psychological states. So you can also say that it is something that influences our behavior. But if you think about that, that would mean that hunger or thirst could be a transient psychological state that influences behavior. So we have to think kind of more deeply about emotion. Emotions can typically be associated with like a gut or visceral response, so a whole body response. Doesn't mean you feel it throughout your body. Hunger could also be considered that as well. But if you think about it as this gut or visceral reaction kind of adding value to your life, I think this is where we start to really think about emotions and how they actually do add value to our life. So if you remember something better because it's added value, because you had a really good feeling or a really bad feeling, then that's kind of where emotion more comes into play. In addition, these specific facial responses that we have, they're globally recognized as, there's about 7 of them: disgust, fear. As we know from all the emojis that we use every day when we send messages, we really rely on a lot more than just these 7 things. So we want to actually have confusion and anxiety and these things, being perplexed. These are all kind of emotions. So when we're thinking about emotions in the brain, it's important to know that there's not like an emotion center in the brain. So typically emotions are things that tap into processes that are already going on. And the easiest way to think about this is the idea of aggression. So aggression is kind of an emotion, but it's not something, there's like one thing that it taps into. So it kind of slots itself into these really complex behavioral sequences that we do anyway. So we're being aggressive because maybe somebody's trying to eat our pups and we're a mouse, or if we're a lion and we're showing aggression because we're trying to get our prey, or if we are just frustrated and we have aggressive behavior because we throw our tennis racket after missing the point like 5 times in a row. So these are all examples of how emotion kind of amplifies things that we already do in ways that kind of heightens them, or it really decreases them so that we can remember them better. Because there's no one emotion center, it's important to know these are scattered throughout the brain. So it's not like we can, do a lesion in the brain somewhere and remove happiness forever. But some kind of more base instincts can be recognized in the amygdala. And so the amygdala in particular is a really interesting structure, because if you do not have an amygdala, so if you have a amygdalectomy where you take out the amygdala on both sides, you have an inability to recognize emotions at all. So you can see all the emojis that we like pass around daily on our text, and you won't be able to interpret the emotional context of them. And that's kind of neat, because it does tell us that there is this brain center that is responsible for at least being able to perceive them, which is really important for socio and emotional learning, particularly when it comes to our kids. The amygdala is also really cool because it allows us to really quickly react to stimuli that are unconscious. So if you flash a picture of a tarantula at someone and then you flash a longer picture of a house, you would not necessarily be able to know that you saw that tarantula picture, but you can pick up like an autonomic nervous system response. So you can have like a sweat response for this. And this is because the amygdala can process things more quickly. It kind of acts as a filtering device so that you can really quickly react to things that will be kind of emotionally concerning, fear, or other kind of threatening stimuli. And I think this is really cool too, so that you can kind of eliminate this whole higher processing areas and just do all this processing and react in the lower brain areas. It's super interesting. So that is my kind of 5 minutes on emotion, and just thinking about emotions as something that is scattered throughout the brain, I think is helpful because so many things tap into it, and it's always this kind of balancing act. So thank you for listening. Join us every day in May for a new video.